Good morning, everyone. Clint McLaughlin here with Midwest Market Management. It is Tuesday, June 24th. I've got Riley Sykard on with me here today. We're going to jump into U.S. weather. We're getting here to the end of June. 2-week outlook is now reaching into the July time period. Man, it's amazing how fast the calendar moves along here, Riley.
Yeah, it's moved along pretty quick and fairly uneventful so far this year. A lot of stuff looks good, but if you're ready, let's just hop right into the maps.
Sure, let's take a look at some conditions here.
Yep, so as you just said, first thing I got pulled up here, corn conditions came out yesterday, actually down 2%, so very much so I'd say on par with last year. Biggest change, North Dakota had those big storms that came through last week, and that definitely hurt them up there. I would say that was the biggest overall move. Other than that, some pretty small numbers, some 5 numbers, Wisconsin, Michigan getting some heat to finally start helping them out. But other than that, I think North Dakota was the only big mover this week.
Yeah, I'm also noticing Kentucky there dropped 5% as well. Now that region, Kentucky, Tennessee, Arkansas, Louisiana, those guys are, that crop's pushing along pretty consistently here. And I was talking with one of my producers down there, and he's, definitely optimistic about the crop, but things are getting hot down there, and they will be moving into pollination here in the near future. So that's an area that you're going to want to watch as the heat comes along here. I've noticed that the heat maps here in the Midwest, we're kind of actually backing off here, but it does look to kind of hang into the mid 90s down there.
Gotcha. Thanks for that, Clint. So looking here too, soybean conditions, a lot more red on the map than I'd actually guessed. Down south, stuff's really looking good, 8 to 10% increases. But here in the central Midwest, I would say a lot of this is coined to beans don't like wet feet. And there has been some rains that in areas have been more than enough to have water sitting on the surface. So maybe that hurt the beans a little bit. But other than that, that's all I got. Clint, do you have any extra tales to add into that?
No, I mean, just up, we get into the Dakotas and everything. It's still just such a cool start to everything. Seems like it took for here in Wisconsin too. It felt like it took us forever to get to 80 degrees. So.
Gotcha. So let's move in now to true weather. Next 1 to 5 day temperatures, like you said, northern corn belt to the central, heat backing off a little bit. You can see like here in Iowa, temps in the 80s, Dakotas in the 80s to high 70s. But as you look to the south, like you mentioned, still a lot of areas with temperatures in the 90 plus range, even that eastern corn belt stretching into Indiana and Ohio. So how they're faring through all this, I'm curious to see if their conditions continue to improve or what's going to happen there with how rough of a start they had. So going to have to watch that pretty close. But I wouldn't say heat in the eastern corn belt's a big issue, as like you mentioned, as we look more down to the south, they're going on what is it now, 2 weeks pretty much with 90 plus degree temperatures.
Yeah, they've had a pretty good stretch of it. Now, granted, I would assume that their hybrids are a little bit differently built than they are here, but nonetheless, you're pretty warm and coming into a pretty critical phase here for it.
Yep. So 6 to 10 day is starting to show some of that heat backing off, except for, Oklahoma, Texas, areas like that. Everybody else in the mid to high 80s. So good to see there. Good conditions for growing for the end of June, and that's getting in all the way to the 3rd of July. So interesting to see there. Now looking here, last 13 days of rainfall. This has been the market killer. Last 13 days, everybody's getting rain. I mean, people keep asking, why is the market going down? Well, when rain makes grain this time of year and there's that much yellow on the map, that kind of tells you all you need to know, doesn't it?
Yeah, you see that little red pocket right there in southern Kansas, Oklahoma. I was actually on the phone yesterday with a guy there in southwest Missouri, and he said you can basically throw a rock from where he is and hit Oklahoma. So that corner there has just been inundated with rain as well. They are still planting, Riley, and the AIPs, he was saying, are not letting them take prevent plant on corn, and they're making them roll it into beans and keep going. So I don't know how widespread that is on the insurance side, but we're rolling around on July 1st, and he said they're still working on planting crops down there.
Wouldn't have guessed to hear that this time of year, so I don't know exactly when the bean cutoff date is that down there either.
Well, see, the thing is they probably have double crop bean practices. So then I think what they're saying is because they do have the ability to plant double crop, they could equally make it their first crop. So anyway, yeah, that's what's going on down there. So that is one of the other areas that's been really hit. We've talked about Oklahoma and the issues it's creating with wheat, but there are still spring crops in that pocket trying to get planted.
Gotcha. That's good to know. So then moving forward here into that 1 to 5 day, pretty simple. Minnesota, Iowa, and Wisconsin is getting solid rains. Areas around that look to be getting enough to, I'd say, maybe keep them happy, especially as you look west. They'll take any rain they can get. Eastern belt, some smaller chances, nothing serious. But when you're looking at the heart of Iowa and Minnesota, those are two huge growing states for corn and soybeans. So very critical and not helping out the markets any right now in this next 1 to 5 day forecast. And if you look in the day to day, it's not supposed to be one big sell. There's rains the next 5 days that are just supposed to continue to pop up. So interesting there. 6 to 10 day. This is the one that kind of is intriguing me a little bit. It looks pretty mild. Some 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch, down to the south, maybe over an inch. But there's not really anything severe on this. So we'll have to really watch this close as that turns into the 1 to 5 by Thursday and see if some of that backs off or if it increases, because we're getting the time of the year where the rain could easily shut off. So going to have to watch that a lot more closely, Clint.
Yeah, and we'll see where the heat goes. But right now, it's just, we get waves of heat, but they seem to be pretty short-lived and followed by a cool front. So right now, it's just hard to see anything threatening.
Yep, I agree. Then putting the 1 to 13 day forecast together, pretty simple. Eastern Corn Belt, all those mild rains can turn into a solid amount. And then that region that I mentioned in that 1 to 5 days showing a lot more large amount of rainfall. But other than that, that's all I got today, Clint. Pretty uneventful here.
Yep, I couldn't agree more. So I appreciate you putting the maps together. And if you'd like to, you can always check us out at midwestmarketmanagement.com. Thanks a lot. We'll be back on here Thursday to give you a look going into the weekend. Take care.
This material has been prepared by a sales or trading employee or agent of Midwest Market Management and is in the nature of a solicitation. This material is not a research report prepared by of Midwest Market Management Research Department. By accepting this communication, you agree that you are an experienced user of the futures markets, capable of making independent trading decisions, and agree that you are not and will not rely solely on this communication in making trading decisions. Distribution in some jurisdictions may be prohibited or restricted by law. Persons in possession of this communication indirectly should inform themselves about and observe any such prohibition or restrictions. To the extent that you have received this communication indirectly and solicitations are prohibited in your jurisdiction without registration, the market commentary in this communication should not be considered a solicitation. The risk of loss in trading futures and/or options is substantial, and each investor and/or trader must consider whether this is a suitable investment. Past performance, whether actual or indicated by simulated historical tests of strategies, is not indicative of future results. Trading advice is based on information taken from trades and statistical services and other sources that of Midwest Market Management believes are reliable. We do not guarantee that such information is accurate or complete, and it should not be relied upon as such. Trading advice reflects our good faith judgment at a specific time and is subject to change without notice. There is no guarantee that the advice we give will result in profitable trades.